One thing you might want to do right now is check over at GME because you are experiencing something crazy. And we'll see if that lasts. We're going to get into this as we look at some technical analysis for the SPY Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, NVIDIA, AMD, and Meta, going over to AMC and GME, looking at volatility as well. But we were talking about this for a few days. We love the signals down in here. We love the signals right down in here. And all you needed was that 2-hour to turn up, and we say, hey, that's got a shot because this is so close to crossing up, but we finally got that signal. Can we go positive, or are we going to see the stock fought against with some kind of gap down? That's what we're going to get into as we get over to GME, but let's start off with the SPY. Now, I do think it makes total sense that GME wants to see some kind of move here because it's leading up into the election, and Donald Trump is someone who said he wants to really cut out the swamp, right? He wants to get rid of a lot of the things people are doing that can suppress the middle class and the lower class. And just so you're aware, 90% of stocks are owned by the top 10% of earners. So when the stock market does go up, it increases inflation and all those things, all those policies that cause these markets to go higher hurt the average American, hurt the average citizen, and really can hurt the entire world as far as the middle class and lower goes. So we are seeing the biggest separation between the wealthy and the middle class and the lower class in I think ever at this point. So the fact that it's reacting now, I do not think it is a coincidence. Now we're going to get into the analysis for the SPY. I just wanted to bring some of that to your attention as we look at a 2-hour. One key thing here, the daily has crossover. We need some daily expected moves. So for tomorrow, you do have 584.98 to the upside and 576.68 to the downside. So upside, downside, I don't know, I think I might have said that backwards. But for the most part, something I really wanted to do with you is that, we said if this curls up, this 2-hour, you have a shot to see an upward move here, and you still have that shot right now. This is crossing up and going into positive territory. Wait a second. Did this go positive? Because I need to zoom in on this to see, did this actually go positive? Let's really zoom in on it. Let's really zoom in and see. That wasn't able to go into positive territory yet. So we have to be aware if this is going to curl down early in the day tomorrow. Now, this is curled up. You are above the 5. You're above all these moving averages here for the 2-hour and the 5-day moving average, which would say that if this can go positive, we can see a move higher. So something we might want to watch out for tomorrow is that upside expected move. If we get excited and get outside of that, watch out if we make some kind of reversal signal as far as tomorrow goes. But for now, we have to also pay attention to the same chart to say if this crosses down on the 2-hour, that's going to break through some key trend lines and maybe we get that retest, but it could end up being pretty bad. So that's something I would pay attention to as we go into a 30-minute. You're just going to notice kind of wonkiness here. So it's not the best time frame. I do believe the 2-hour is the best time frame to pay attention to. Sorry about the hiccups. But we still have to be aware of that 2-hour structure and the fact that this is a 30-minute going up to that cup level. Maybe this is still a deep handle and we're about to see a move higher. So if that 30-minute can turn up, that 2-hour can go positive, we could see positivity here. But if that 2-hour rolls down early in the day, I'd be a little bit fearful. Now the Qs are going to experience a little bit more weakness, I believe, if this is able to cross down on a 2-hour. We'll get into that in a moment. First of all, we got to get you those daily expected moves being 553 to the upside. And we do have 490.27 to the downside. So just a little bit bigger range than yesterday. But one thing you're going to notice here is what did we really make here? And we've actually created some form of divergence here for the Qs. And I believe that on the 4-hour, this was even slightly going to show up, right? We'll see if that can show up maybe tomorrow. But for the most part, this could be a rejection divergence. This could be some form of double top. This could be something ugly if that 2-hour is able to turn down. But real quick, just so you know, this 2-hour has not curled down and it is positive in positive territory, which still means you always got a shot to see that next move higher for the Qs. We have seen bullishness for a very long time. We have a market that only wants to go up because of the policies that are being put out there, because of the free money that is given to billionaires and all that kind of stuff. So this would make sense to go higher, wouldn't it? But we can react if that does curl down on a 2-hour. We'll see what happens with this going forward. As we look into a 30-minute, something that you're going to notice is that it's really, really close to the center line. So if I'm going to see positivity, then I'm most likely going to see this 30-minute curl up early on in the day. Okay, so if we see this as some kind of consolidation, we get that breakout, well, we could go higher, but if we get outside of 553, then that would say if we do that early on in the day, we have a chance to land back down by the end of the day. Key thing to know about these daily expected moves and the weekly expected moves up here in purple is this is a 68% zone for the day. So you only have a 32% chance to see something crazy, aka land outside of that zone. So when you see this early on in the day, it's a higher percentage chance for you to land back in that zone. And something you could see pop up here for the Qs is a little 30-minute divergence. So I would be paying very close attention if we see a quick upside move and that is given up early on in the day. That will be something we're paying close attention to throughout the market. As you can see, the daily scale trying to kind of get this like, hey, I'm trying to base out, I'm trying to curl up, but that does not look like a good daily bar. It's pretty much an inside trading bar from the last one, even though it's a, pretty good bar size here. You do still have a pretty much inside trading day for the time being, and you're still looking for that to really pick a direction which way it wants to go. As of right now, the daily scale is saying I need to pull back, and when you do see that pullback, a lot of the time you're going to see what? 2-hour divergences. And this is what we really talk about in the course, is signals like this. Now, it's not outside of a weekly move, so you got to take it with a grain of salt. It means that we can find support at lower levels at any time. But for the most part, if the Qs are going to solidify this as a lower high right now, this could be a major top, and maybe we're seeing a reaction in the market, and maybe insiders are selling really, really fast because they don't want Donald Trump to win, because he might actually clamp down on the things that allows them to make poor people poorer and make rich people richer. And I think that's a big thing that might be going on right now. Apple's going to be a good one to pay attention to, and one thing from Apple is that 2-hour did curl up into positive territory, which means we have a good shot to test this high. We have a good shot to go make a new one. I know a bunch of earnings are coming out throughout the week, but I'm just going to talk about these from the technical standpoint, okay? I'm going to tell you guys, once again, my whole premise on earnings is it is a 50-50 flip. They could say one good thing and that gives the market maker a reason to shoot this thing higher, or they could say one bad thing and that gives everyone else the reason to sell it. So it is a 50-50 flip no matter what the signals really look like. The only time I ever take signals with some kind of earnings is when we have the golden setup, which actually Apple, since we're on it, we can talk about the last time that we had the golden setup, and it actually was right before an earnings. It was right down here. Okay, this is when you have the golden setup, and that is when you can take a pretty confident trade. But something I always say to myself every time I see that little E is, hey, Luke, if you really have to take a play here, just downsize that position, because at the end of the day, this is a 50-50 thing. Now, for the time being, we can notice that Apple doesn't have the best macro signals in the world, but we can see that that 2-hour is crossed up into positive territory, so we can see that next upward move. Now the 30-minute. The 30-minute is telling you something a little bit different, okay? Just a little bit different, because we're noticing that we're getting these nice upward moves for the 30-minute here. When we look at this RSI, I mean, this is not really showing a ton of strength, I would say. It's actually showing that this 30-minute is crossing down. Okay, crossing down, which means that early on in the day tomorrow, we could cross down, and if that goes negative, we might see this as some kind of big A, B, C move to go down towards 225.84. Maybe we'll just see consolidation and everyone will react on Friday to this earnings, but I think Apple's something to pay attention to, because that thing is crossed over on the 30-minute. So your shortest time frame, the 30-minute, is saying a pullback here, or because we're close to negative territory there, at least decently close, you can see downside. So I'd be paying attention to that, but sometimes Apple does save the market, and that's why we got to say earnings is a 50-50 flip. Tesla, this is actually fantastic. You're seeing great behavior here. You're seeing an hourly chart that is way up here. Great move, gave divergence down here. Earnings didn't have the golden setup, so still, I believe this was a 50-50 flip. Now, there was some risk to reward arguments here for taking calls, and I think that that's justified. But what happened here that's telling us there's downside? Well, if we look at a 15-minute, what happened? Well, we made a very dramatic divergence at the top, and we curled that down, and we went negative. So therefore, the hourly has a good chance to turn down. And what would we say with this kind of look? Well, the positioning of the MACD is leading us to believe that this could be still some kind of pullback. Maybe if we catch up to this 5-day moving average, we can see if we're able to base out and make the next move higher for Tesla. We're still going to do this analysis with what is in front of us and try not to take anything else into consideration at this moment. What we want to do is Well, what do we normally say? Well, if I see a big move because of earnings, I'm waiting for the next opportunity, right? I'm being patient. I didn't risk my money in this 50-50 play, so I'm not gambling. But if this 2 hour would get by that center line and curl up into positive territory, pretty confident that would test the high and go make a new one. Now, why would you really want to pay attention to this one for Tesla? Well, one, because it's turned up, right? It's crossed up on a monthly scale. So that means that Tesla actually could be a good investment for 12 to 24 months, which adds even more credibility to the fact that people are positioning themselves for possibly a Trump win here. Once again, this channel is not about politics. I'm just telling you exactly what's happening, which is people on the news have literally come out and say that big investors are positioning themselves for a Trump win. They are positioning themselves by buying certain stocks that are related to manufacturing. Domestic manufacturing is important there. So this is not me trying to get political. I'm just telling it how it is right now. And the 2 hour turns down, the 2 hour turns back up. Hey, you can see another positive move. And maybe this is some massive cup and handle that just needs to reload before you see that big breakout. So that's something I'd pay attention to. But if the market does suffer, Tesla can suffer too. So there's always risk of that even after a strong move for Tesla. But I think that's the main thing we want to get at today, which is if that 2 hour can curl down and curl back up, that would be the real opportunity for Tesla, because it's not necessarily showing too many reversal signals that say, hey, this is about to go into a negative trend for a long time. Then you have something like Amazon's 2 hour, which is giving you a ton of divergence up here. And we talked about this over the weekend, the fact that it gave you weekly divergence here and confirmed. So when we compared this, if you don't watch our weekend updates, please start to watch them on Saturday morning, because we talk about the bigger scale, right? We talk about weekly charts, monthly charts, daily charts. And for the most part, we can see that Amazon saw a crazy amount of weakness. And that's just because it actually confirmed its weekly divergence here. And this is some kind of bounce. So if this is going to confirm itself as a lower high, you would see a bunch of 2 hour divergences popping up. So if this is able to curl down, that's a bad thing. Has that curled down yet? No. So that tells us, with earnings coming around the corner, that we need to be paying attention to this guy. And even though it's a 50-50 flip, we're just going to look at this one and say the 2 hours crossed up, it's positive in positive territory, which means at any time, really, we can see a move to, well, test the closing highs, maybe go make a new one. We're testing the closing highs now. We'll see if that can last, because if this 2 hour rotates down, you're confirming another point of divergence. And look how weak that is. It's not even overbought or anything like that at this point. So be very careful with something like Amazon. Another thing to pay attention to is if that 2 hour is able to, remain positive, well, then this 30 minutes going to need to whip back around. And a cool thing is we put up this zone, right, a long time ago, and we noticed that this zone's becoming important. We gap pretty much out of it. We come back in it for a retest. We get some buyers to step in from there. So you're going to have to lose this zone most likely to see something ugly. And for the most part, we can see that as we reacted to that area, you almost made a double top with the divergence for Amazon on this 30 minutes. So be very cautious here. I think the 2 hour does have a chance to roll down, but obviously it's positive in positive territory, so no decision to be made there. Something we can look for early on in the day is if this 30 minute is turning up into positive territory. Maybe something like SoFi earnings tomorrow is going to shake things up. Something we were watching for NVIDIA was, is this some kind of cup and handle to head higher, or is this the big divergences that we've been talking about? And at this point, you're out of your monthly zone. If you would like to join the Patreon down in the description to get these monthly zones, we do not give these to you over on YouTube. People do pay to get them. So buy me a cup of coffee and you can get these ranges too. And this has been one of the best signals we've ever had, right? We've used this 3 times. It's worked out 3 times. And now it's popping up a 4th time. Is this also a double top? So not only did we say this could be a cup and handle, watch for that 30 minute to curl up, we also said this is double top divergence, and so we can see dramatic downside from here to get back into our 68% zone, because we are seeing something crazy right now from NVIDIA on the monthly scale. Has that 30 minute crossed up? No. So we have to be aware that this 2 hour has rejected very firmly here. We're closing below the 5-day moving average, and we have a 68% chance to land down here by the end of the month, and we only have 3 days left. So be very cautious with something like NVIDIA, because that thing is very close to crossing over its daily MACD, at least saying pullback, right? We're not talking, we're just looking at things for what they are right now in the price action. And right now it's telling us that hey, there's not the best reversal signals here, right? You might have divergence all the way across the way, more so on the weekly scale. So we got to watch if those weeklies cross over for a crash. But if this daily turns down, it is well enough into positive territory to really start to base out and turn back up over time, maybe by the time earnings comes around for NVIDIA. So those are the things I'd really be watching from NVIDIA. And I think it's still important to watch this 30-minute. It's still close to that center line. So don't think like, oh, this thing has to crash down now. You never really want to have that mentality. You always want to pay attention to how you can get screwed, something we talk about and teach you how to not get screwed in the course down in the description. Currently 90% off. It will be going away in November. Get it before it's gone because that price is going way up. AMD, this one is interesting because you actually made a 30-minute divergence here, but you're pulling back with time. So if that 30-minute curls up, we should expect positivity. Notice that earnings is coming out, looks like Wednesday, so we have to pay attention to this, and we do have a 30-minute divergence, and that thing has confirmed. Now, it's not like dramatically close to the center line or anything like that, but you do have it on the MACD and RSI at the same time. We're seeing this thing start to pop up. So if this crosses right back up, positivity, not going to work out, right? Maybe we go into a 15-minute. If that thing crosses up, we see that cross up, watch out for 160.83. We've used that point before, but for now, we would just say maybe it creates some kind of small 15-minute triple divergence, but we don't want to read into that too much. We just want to see, as this thing did have basing out signals, has the daily scale turned up here? Because if daily momentum gets behind this thing with the earnings, you can see a crazy upward move if that's positive, but all of that energy could be distributed the other way if it is negative. So be very cautious with AMD. If they want to hold the market up, they may, do something with AMD as far as just take one good thing and cause it as the reason for it to go up. So I think the key thing for tomorrow is the 2 hour. Is the 2 hour going to be able to curl down tomorrow? That's what we have to pay attention to going forward for AMD. Meta curled up on a 2 hour, creating a good structural move, really. You're reacting up to this level. It looks like the area where you do want to pile up to break through. So we'll see if that's able to come to fruition. One thing you're going to need with that is daily momentum with you again, right? We're looking at this from a lens that this can go higher, but the market really looks like it's topping out. So from this point, if that daily is able to cross up into positive territory, you're going to test that high, you're going to go make a new one. And we do have weekly ranges for Meta in case that does happen. But on the 30-minute, there's something else going on here, okay? There is something else going on here, and that is if Meta experiences weakness tomorrow, that can curl down your 2 hour chart, okay? So you want to pay attention to that. You do see this divergence right here. You see that on the MACD. You see that on the RSI. That is not necessarily the strongest thing in the world. So this is another situation that could be a cup and handle. Watch if that breaks through, right? Curls up on a daily scale, but this also could be double topping in this area. And so we want to pay attention early on tomorrow if that 30-minute is crossing over, because if that 30 minutes crossing over, we should expect some weakness here for Meta. Now it's time to get into the good stuff because GME saw something crazy. AMC still hasn't, right? We readjusted that level. We did the calculation. And in order to see something crazy from AMC, you got to get through 470, and we have not done that yet. And so something interesting is some big wicks coming in, So I do believe they are still fighting the stock at this point. Maybe GameStop is too much for them to take control of, but they could with AMC. But something that we noticed way in the past was when AMC starts to run, they go, oh crap, we got to clamp down on AMC. And when GME starts to run, then they go, oh crap, we got to clamp down on GME or AMC, right? So if one of them starts to run, the other one they kind of forget about for a sec, and then that one starts to run. They have to do this back and forth game of like, I'm going to play with this one. Oh no, we need to short this one, short this one, short. So I think they have a hard time keeping up these days with these kinds of moves. I mean, the daily scale has been turned up for a little while. We had some basing out signals down here, so it did give us the signals that said, hey, this can start to see some positivity, and it is seeing some positivity, and that's a key thing. But AMC has to get through 470 for you to see some crazy price action. But the good part is when its brother's already doing it, that's a good sign. Okay, GME is doing it. We told you about the 2 hour turning up, and I'd pay attention to that anytime that 2 hour turns up. We told you how tight the Bollinger Bands were getting. We told you how big moves were turning into smaller and smaller and smaller. And watch out if you get a reaction, because you might just turn up the daily and end up seeing something crazy. And that's actually what ended up happening. Now, a lot of the time we say you hope that crosses up and then you see something crazy the next day, but this is actually even better. You're closing outside of an expected area by the options market, which means it's going to take a lot of money to push this thing back down. I do expect them to try to fight the stock, so we're going to talk about this a little further, but just so we're clear, you're getting through 2191. That is the level to get through in order to see a gamma squeeze. This is where the options market is taken off guard and you can see crazy things happen. Okay, so something we want to know is this is a great signal, but what if it's not the moment? What if this is going to turn down for the rest of the week and then you see something big next week because they were taken off guard? Well, that would be the 30-minute. So something that I always tell people when they ask about GME is, I always say, once I really studied what was going on with it, I started to research the charts. And what I ended up researching was the 30-minute. I wanted to figure out if there was a good way to know when to buy or sell this thing. And for the most part, it was when you see a good daily signal, what happened? The 30-minute turned up and it never was able to turn back down until it was at a crazy price. So if you're seeing GME and AMC curl up on 30 minutes with the daily crossed up, it means it's got a chance because that 30-minute went up and it never turned back down. The only thing that we saw for a perfect sell signal on AMC, not GME, it did not pop up for GME, was when AMC actually saw crazy price action to the upside. I'm talking hundreds of dollars, right? Well, when that happened, it created a divergence. It created a divergence down here on your MACD. So if this is going to happen, then I assume that the 30-minute is not going to be able to cross because when it has seen these majorly big moves, we've seen crazy high price action and the 30-minute was never able to cross in those. And the way that we can look at that is if we look back in the past, we actually told people back when this made this big move, yeah, right here, May of 2024, right? It made this big move. What ended up happening? Well, the 30-minute went up, right? 30-minute went up, and then it crossed back down, and then we consolidate, and then we consolidate. But notice this, then the 30-minute crossed up, and it never crossed back down until it saw something absolutely crazy. And so then we can look back one more time and just say, okay, if this is going to curl down, not the moment. So it curled up, curled down, not the moment. Curled up. When you're seeing these crazy things, all you need to do is say, okay, if the 30-minute is positive here, and then it does have a chance. And that's the main thing I'm trying to get across here is I've studied this very, very thoroughly, and I've noticed that if it's going to see something crazy, then the 30-minute is not able to confirm momentum down anymore. Instead, it's actually just saying, hey, this thing is still taking off. So if you really want the big moment to happen, you do not want a 30-minute to cross down. And if a 30-minute crosses down, then most likely we are going to see consolidation or some kind of pullback before that is able to turn up one more time. Volatility doing something great, which is turned up on the 30-minute off of the 5-day moving average. That's what we were looking for if we were going to see volatility come in early on this week. It's still not out of the water yet, though. You haven't seen a big move and you haven't curled up the daily chart, right? We need to curl up the daily MACD to see volatility really come into this market, even though we're already acting like a bear market with the crash signal posted there, and we're seeing a lot of crazy stuff. So you got to really watch some stuff out there, and something we're paying attention to for downside for volatility is if this 2-hour chart can roll down. And yes, I do pay attention to multiple time frames. I know it seems confusing sometimes, but for the most part, this has really helped my trading. Being able to read into one time frame that's smaller and then look at how it affects other time frames has really helped out my trading. It's something that I actually teach in the course down in the description. I really teach that by just talking about those type of setups and how they react to the 2-hour, how 30 minutes turn up a 2-hour, how 30-minute diverges, 2-hour diverges, how they turn up bigger time frames. And from right here, we do not have any of those divergences. So what you would say is if we're going to get bullish here, then this 2-hour has to really confirm down again. And if we're going to get bearish, well, then you kind of already have that result here, but you really want to see the daily chart confirm that to see more volatility come into this market. And I really think with GME popping off, with how the weeklies look in the market, that we have almost no time left. So the main takeaway here is I believe the market really is in a place where tomorrow is kind of a little bit of a deciding factor. Can we see that 2-hour go positive, or are we going to see that 2-hour rotate back down for the SPY. I think that's going to be key. I think it's interesting that GME is popping off right before the election. I think it's interesting that GME is popping off right as we're seeing the market want to top out. We'll see if the market's going to crash and GME crashes with it, but there is a chance that GME could be the reason that all of this is going to happen, and maybe Trump is the reason that GME is going to pop off. So these are all things that I'm reading into, but most of the time we just talk about the technicals. I wanted to put it out there so you guys can have it in your brain. Maybe you have some comments, or maybe you have something that you would like to bring to my attention. I am very open to it. Please join us for our live shows so that we can see what you guys are thinking, because I think that's very important. I love hearing other people's take, even if you disagree with me, because I like to learn. So if there's anything I can learn from anyone, I'm pretty excited to do that. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. I really do appreciate it. Thank you guys for liking, subscribing, taking the courses, join the Patreon. You guys are fantastic, and I just hope to continue to be helpful. Good luck with your trades tomorrow. Have a good night, and I will see you in the morning. Peace.